We had this video the last time as a brief introduction, and so I'm just going to play it again because I think it gives you a very good overview.
Biomes are major communities of organisms that have a characteristic appearance and are distributed over a wide area defined largely by vegetation and regional variations in climate. Ecologists recognize between 8 and 14 major categories of biomes. The most commonly used terms to identify biomes include tropical rainforest, savanna, desert, temperate grassland, temperate deciduous forest, temperate evergreen forest, taiga, and tundra. Moisture and temperature are key environmental factors in determining which biomes are found where. Tropical rainforests receive 140 to 450 centimeters of rain per year and contain at least half of the Earth's species of plants and animals. The soil in tropical rainforests is not nutrient-rich. Most of the nutrients are held in the plants. Savannas are grasslands that border the tropics and receive 75 to 125 centimeters of rain per year. This environment is characterized by alternating rainy and dry seasons. Savannas are often inhabited by huge herds of grazing animals that migrate in response to the seasons. Deserts receive less than 25 centimeters of rain per year. Vegetation is sparse, and survival depends on water conservation. Temperate grasslands are found halfway between the equator and the poles. These temperate regions are characterized by fertile soil. Temperate deciduous forests occur in regions with warm summers, cool winters, and plenty of rain. Dominant species of trees include oak, maple, ash, and hickory. Temperate evergreen forests occur in regions where winters are cold and there is a strong seasonal dry period. The taiga consists of a great ring of northern forests consisting of coniferous trees. This ecosystem is one of the largest on Earth, with long, cold winters and most of the limited precipitation falling in the summer. In the far north, above the taiga, few trees grow. The grassland, called tundra, is open, windswept, and often boggy. Trees are small and confined to regions near lakes and streams. Large grazing animals, including reindeer and caribou, as well as carnivores, such as wolves and foxes, live in these areas.
We're going to start off with tropical forests. Tropical means we're talking about an equatorial area. So we're talking about within 10 degrees latitude north and south of the equator. We're going to find these tropical rainforests. Average temperatures are around 25 degrees Celsius, and they have 12 hours of sunlight per day. The rainfall can be variable, and that is going to determine whether you're going to get a tropical rainforest or a tropical dry forest. We know that this is variable because we know those Hadley cells will shift depending on where the Earth is in its orbit around. So types of tropical forests, there are thorn forests, which are furthest from the equator. They have a very long dry season. There's tropical deciduous forests, and they're a little bit closer to the equator. They do have a distinct wet and dry season, but they will lose their leaves during the dry season. And then there's the tropical rainforest, which is what we usually think of when I think about tropical forests. We think about jungles. They have a largest amount of rain of any biome, over 250 centimeters of rain per year. So it's basically a constant, perpetual summer, and there is an uninterrupted growing season. So there's no drought. You've just got unlimited all year round. So we'll talk about tropical rainforests because that's the one you're most familiar. They occur within 10 degrees latitude north and south of the equator. The temperature is fairly constant over the year. The annual rainfall of 2,000 to 4,000 millimeters, which is 200 to 400 centimeters, which is 2 to 4 meters, is relatively evenly distributed across the year. All of that rain tends to leach the nutrients from the rainforest soils, and there's rapid decomposition because it's warm, and so those nutrients are released quite quickly. As a result, the rainforest soils are often nutrient poor. They tend to be acidic, they're thin, and they don't have much organic material left. It just gets recycled almost immediately. So in many rainforests, more nutrients are tied up in the trees, in the tops of the trees, than in the soils. However, there are some places where the soils are very fertile, like along riverbanks, and you find that there is a lot of organisms living in those soils that are recycling those nutrients quite quickly. Some of the organisms that live in soil include a lot of fungi. The fungi produce these hyphae, which are these strands that spread out throughout the soil, gathering these nutrients. A mat of these strands is called mycorrhiza, and what the trees will do, plants will do, is they will work in conjunction with these fungi. So they will feed the fungi sugar that the plant produces through photosynthesis. The fungi will link up to the roots. They can either be on the surface of the roots, or some of them even embed into the roots of the plants in order to provide the plants the nutrients from the soil. These mycorrhiza, these fungi, are essential to the trees being able to grow in such nutrient poor soil. Because of the rapid growth, you get these very large trees, and this is definitely a very three-dimensional biome. So the organisms, the plants, add a third dimension. You can be living in different layers up towards the sun, and you're not like you're walking around on a flat biome like in a grassland. You have a lot of vertical dimension in the tropical rainforest. One of the important things you should be aware of in tropical rainforests is that there are a lot of foods and medicines that are used for the world's human populations. Unfortunately, because of that, it's become increasingly exploited for those products. The tropical rainforest contains as many species of plants and animals as all other types of ecosystems combined. An example of a study that was done that they found in a 4 mile square area that there were 750 different species of trees. That's a lot of different species of trees. And there were 1,500 different species of flowering plants within that 4 square mile area. Typically, you'll see it described as being stratified into different layers based on the heights of the plants, and you might see this listed as 5 different layers. It depends on the type of the forest, but each layer has its characteristic plants. They could reach a height of 80 meters tall. When you get up really tall, you can find on the branches of the trees these epiphyte mats. We talked about these in chapter 1 when we were talking about nutrient budgets in forests, and they store a large amount of nutrients and support a high diversity of plants and animals. So what happens is as leaves will die, little insects will die, a soil starts to form on the surface of the branch, and that will help store and trap organisms such as bacteria and fungi that are going to go ahead and recycle the nutrients that have come off of these and put those nutrients back into the plants. The trees will even sometimes send roots up the trunk and back up onto the branches so they can take advantage of these epiphyte mats. These epiphytes are actually really popular now. People like to grow these are the little air plants and little orchids and ferns and things like that. They're not parasites. They're just actually using the tree for support. The location of the tropical rainforest, this is a moist environment, so we can uh, see that this is going to be where the sun has been directly overhead and it's evaporating all of that water, which was cooling and condensing and falling uh, in the form of precipitation. So we find this narrow band of tropical rainforest right along the equatorial region, where the precipitation in general exceeds a meter, or sorry, 10 centimeters of precipitation every month. And so we end up over the course of the year getting meters worth of precipitation. Uh, the map shows the tropical rainforest in various locations in the biome. So we can see on the left side, we have the tropical rainforests found in Brazil, where we have a very constant temperature throughout the year, and then the precipitation is fairly constant depending on your location, but still is always adequate for growing your plants. Then we've got a very similar pattern in Zaire in Central Africa. So we are looking once again at a very constant temperature. And then the last one is in Southeast Asia. We've got once again a very constant temperature. And so you could look at a glance at these and you'd know that you were looking at tropical rainforests. When we look at the amount of precipitation, just a point out that the scale changes where these turn into a darker blue in the graph. The scale goes from going up by 20 millimeters to going up by 200 millimeters at that point. So if this scale was set the same way all the way up, these graphs would be off the page with the amount of precipitation. So there's very little topsoil. The soil is very poor. It's not holding many nutrients. It also is easily weathered, which means if you chop down the trees, it'll wash away in the rain, so it'll erode quite quickly. The subsoil tends to, so down in the lower layers of the soil tends to have a lot of clay with iron in it, so it is a reddish soil. And so if they cut down the rainforest, you find these exposed red soils washing away. And that is a major problem with the slash and burn type of agriculture. With slash and burn agriculture, you are going to be cutting down the trees and burning it in the hopes that those nutrients from the burn will go into the soil, but it'll wash away so quickly that you can only farm on it for a couple of years and then it's gone. So deforestation, the cutting down of these trees, is a major impact of humans in the tropical rainforest. And people are growing corn, rice, bananas, sugarcane, and getting approximately a quarter of our prescription drugs from plants. And unfortunately, it's also being cleared for cattle. The loss of forest at the present rate means that the disappearance of the forest is definitely within your lifetime, and this is being exacerbated by climate change. And we're finding these forests are getting so hot, even the trees are dying from the increased temperature, and we are losing the medical and economic use of them. The next forest discussed in your book is the tropical dry forest, which is a seasonal forest. During the dry season, it is all looking a little brown, and then you can see in the top corner, in the wet season, you have this beautiful green forest where everything is flowering and the insects appear and animals will migrate in so that they can take advantage of that lush wet season. So it is a little bit further north and south than the tropical rainforest, between 10 to 25 degrees latitude on the planet. So remember, when we're talking about uh, latitude, we've got the planet sitting here. We've got the equator there. The equator's at 0 degrees latitude. The North Pole is at 90 north. The South Pole is at 90 south. We've got on its 23.5-degree angle here. And so we had between 0 and 10, we had the tropical rainforest, and 10 to 25, we will have the tropical dry forest. Because it's not raining all year round, the soils generally have more nutrients, but they still are fragile. They're still vulnerable to eroding away. They have many of the same plants and animal species as the tropical rainforest, so you'll find quite a bit of overlap in the types of organisms that live there. And this is much more heavily used by people. People will live here and clear it for agriculture because it's not raining all year long. They find it much more suitable for raising livestock. So when we look at the location of the tropical dry forest, we are surrounding that area. We had in this area here in the middle of Africa and in Brazil and Southeast Asia, we had tropical rainforests. So it's surrounding that. It's just to the north and south of those areas. When we look at the climate diagrams, they are completely different. So remember, when you were looking at the climate diagram of the tropical rainforest, we still had this, we have this jump in the scale. So they've got very high amounts of rainfall. But unlike the tropical rainforest, that rainfall is not all year. That rainfall is in a rainy season. And so each one of these have a rainy season. And when that rainy season falls depends when the sun is directly overhead, as it is shifting over the course of the year. So there is a fairly substantial part of the year where you do not have enough precipitation for the plants to grow. And so it's a very stressful time of year where you can see the temperature line falls above the precipitation line. So you have these severe drought conditions at those times of the year. One thing to point out here, well, when we're looking at these tropical dry forests that are in Australia, so this one on the right-hand side, that the months are different because they put their summer in the middle. So this is starting at July and going to June instead of starting at January to December like they do on the other ones. When we look at the different types of tropical forests, we can see the human population density varies quite a bit. So the tropical dry forests are definitely where we have many more people, and because of that, they have been cleared and settled, and this loss of dry forest is significant. The even though there's more species in the tropical rainforest, we do have some dry tropical forest species that are found in no other biome that are being impacted and influenced. Example of this may be if you look at the tropical dry forests in Madagascar, and the species of lemurs are found only in Madagascar, and they are definitely being encroached upon.